Today, we're diving into the age of relationships. But first, let's have good manners. Welcome to the Confident Woman Lead podcast. I'm your host, Anita Miller, and this podcast is designed to be your go to source for learning how to navigate the workplace, build meaningful relationships, and position yourself for leadership and promotions. On this podcast, we skip over the surface level advice that you've been given, and I dive into the skills you need to speak like a leader. Leadership communication, strategic positioning, and mastering power dynamics is what you need to gain in order to get the things that you want, whether that's at work, in corporate America, or in business. And so inside of CWL, I teach women just like you how to stop getting stuck in the middle and confidently claim your seat. And not just your seat at the table, your seat wherever you want it to be, sis. Let's get into today's conversation around the age of relationships. One of the things that came to me today was networking and relationships. And what came to me was we are in the age of relationships. And I know that when you look on social media, when you look about how we talk about dating, how we talk about interactions with people, you would think that that's not true. But on the other side of all the discontent is a deep, deep desire for people to connect, to have meaningful relationships. And so then my mind started thinking back in time. And so if we rewind for a moment, what came to me was the 1960s. And in the 1960s, you might be like, well, that was the age of relationships, right? Because we had the good old boy network and we also had the civil rights movement. But when you break it down, that era wasn't about relationships in and of themselves. It was the age of community. Back then, people came together not just because they wanted to, but because they had to. They came together for a collective strength process and for survival, whether we agree with that approach or not. But now, things have changed. Today, you're not just seeking community. What you're craving, what all humans are craving, is genuine connection, not just surface level, and not even just surface level entertainment. But what we are all looking for is real, deep, meaningful relationships. For the most part, we are all tired of surface level interactions. It's one of the reasons why you've likely been taking more time off of social media. It's one of the reasons why you've been probably keeping your circle close or not interacting with people at all. And it's because we are tired of shallow networking events and we are exhausted when it comes to work with just making LinkedIn connections or collecting business cards at conferences. And they never really translate into genuine support or real opportunities. And here's what I want you to know. I believe you might be mistaking having a network for having relationships. What you've been told is your network is your net worth. But in reality, that is not true. You can have hundreds of people filling your inbox, having you as a connection on LinkedIn, or any of those things, and it not result in something meaningful for what it is that you truly desire, whether that is a promotion, whether that is a new role, whether that is just a friendship, even. And this is how we end up stuck in the middle. And when I say stuck in the middle, in this case, I am talking about your career, where a lot of times we feel overlooked, underappreciated, and undervalued. But I'm talking about stuck in the middle, even in life, especially when you get to older millennial Gen X. This is the moment where you start to think, is there something more? Or I'm exhausted with networking. That doesn't lead to anything. And I want to talk to you about where there's a gap so that you can close that gap to get to your desired outcome. Let's talk about the difference between networking or network and relationships. Networks are transactional. They are shallow. Sure, they will get you noticed momentarily. Maybe it may even get you an interview, a foot in the door, but they rarely lead to opportunities or long term growth. Networks won't get you promoted, they won't even get you a seat at the table, and they won't speak your name when you're not in the room. Let me be clear, just because you know someone does not mean that they are speaking your name in a room, even if they think you are the most qualified, are a great candidate for the role. People are not willing to risk their reputation for just somebody they know or know of. Relationships, on the other hand, and before I talk about relationships from a work perspective, let me clarify something. Having relationships in the workplace does not mean having friendships. A friendship is a type of relationship. And even in friendship, we all have friends where we have different relationships with them. You have your friend that you call when there's drama. You have your friend when you need to be talked off the ledge and they're going to give you good guidance. You have your friend that you call when you need to ride out. Even in friendships, there are different aspects that we have this genuine connection between one person or another that is not the same as what you have with somebody else. And for whatever reason, we believe that in order to have relationships in the workplace, we have to like the people, we have to trust the people, we have to tell the people all of our business, and none of that is true. I can genuinely love you for who you are, work with you, respect you, and know that I can trust you. Know that if we go into that meeting, you're going to throw me under the bus because I know that your true nature is to save yourself first by any means necessary. And I understand that about you. I'm not delusional about that. And I'm not blaming you because I was delusional about that. I understand that that's who you are. So I don't let you play in my face like that. And I don't misinterpret what this relationship is and what it consists of. Relationships are not transactions. Relationships have depth and they are a win win scenario for both parties in one aspect or another at one time or another. Relationships are built on trust. Now, I know I just said I don't have to trust you, but right after I said that, I also said I trust them to be them and I know them when I see them. We spend so much time worried about we can't trust people, so we keep them at a distance. Meanwhile, we see what they are doing and we give them excuses for doing it. We give them a reprieve for doing it. You can absolutely trust everyone if you are willing to accept that that's who they are. Relationships are why someone picks up your call late in the evening or advocates behind closed doors for you. Relationships are the currency of influence and power in today's workplace. Let me just tell you, you don't have to have a seat at the proverbial table to be someone of great influence and power. The people that actually run this country, we would never know their names. They have immense influence and power, but we never see their faces. But when you see a picture of the people around the room, you don't see them. If you want career growth, higher pay, a new job, even in today's economy, or a promotion, relationships, not networks, are the game changers. And inside of CWL, I teach you how to master communication so that you can build robust relationships. We equip you with the skills to move beyond superficial connections, teaching you also how to build authentic bonds with people without sacrificing yourself for what you may believe that that bond should look like, and thereby positioning yourself as an undeniable choice for opportunities and advancement. But not only that, with relationships comes protection. With relationships come cover. So let me give you some ideas of what I mean by this. In this new era of relationships, when people have job openings, opportunities, they are going to go back to looking at people in their immediate relational circle first. And we know based on trusting people to be them that people will hire unqualified people based on relationships. So if you're listening to this because you have been recently laid off, where are your relationships? It'll be much easier for you to get a job if you have relationships in place. And for everyone else, even if you are gainfully employed today, gainfully about to get a promotion, just got a promotion, all of the things, I want you to know you need to be networking now if you have no relationships, cementing relationships if you do have them. The time to call someone isn't when you need them. Because we all know how that feels. We all got that cousin, that brother, that relative that only calls us when they need something. Don't be that person. Relationships require cultivation. And let me just give you some contrast. Networking requires quantity. And it can be exhausting because you're thinking that you need to have quantity. Relationships don't require quantity, they require quality. The quality of your efforts, the quality of your time, the quality of your presence, the quality of your thoughts, your ideas. Quality. And I recently had this conversation with one of the members inside of CWL because even though she's gainfully employed, there's been some reorgs and we don't wait until something bad happens. We stay ready, right? So we were talking about going back to her network because she hasn't been networking the way she was before. Going back to her network and starting to reach out to people, have some coffee chats, do whatever she needed to do to kind of revitalize her network, cement the relationships that she have with people in her network. And one of the things she said to me was, but Anita, my network isn't that big. How many of y'all think that your network has to be big? That there has to be hundreds of people in it in order for it to manifest into something? I don't know if you all know it, but there are a lot of influencers with a million followers that cannot make money. Meanwhile, I know coaches with 5,000 or less followers who makes millions of dollars. The quantity of people that you theoretically are connected to in a network are not the same as having relationships. In today's world, and as we move forward, I would rather see you spending your time building relationships than exceeding expectations. Do not be exceeding expectations and have no relationships. Yeah, I yelled at you because I need you to hear me. And the time for sugarcoating it in this age of relationships is quite over. Now, if you're honest with yourself and you don't know how to build genuine relationships with people, especially people that you work with, in a way that allows you to show up as yourself, build relationships, but also make sure you're not setting yourself up for disappointment, then get inside of CWL. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to close out with giving you some ideas. And I'll use me and my husband as an example. My husband just started a new role. And this role came to him by way of a relationship. This relationship goes back 20 years, maybe 15 at least, to when he worked on the floor. If you've been following me, you know that my husband's a nurse. And so when he first got started, there was a group of people that he started with, and they worked together for a solid, let's say 5 years. So his last role was from one of the relationships he built back then. This one was from another person that was in that initial group that was willing to, in both cases, stake their reputation on we should hire this person. And interviews and all the things were formality. And let me just tell you, they were formalities. This is what happens when you have relationships. Did he talk to these people every day? No. Did in one case they connect maybe once, twice a year, catch up, things like that? Yes. So for 30 minutes, even an hour, hour and a half, one time a year, when he was ready for a new opportunity, it was available to him. He didn't have to apply to 1,000 places and things like that. When we talk about you got to apply to 1,000 jobs, we are essentially talking about you have to network, you have to be transactional. But you can just have two relationships with two people and stay gainfully employed or employed in areas that you want to be employed in. Okay, now I can tell you right now that there are probably 10 people that I can reach out to and say, hey, I'm looking to go back to corporate America. Let me know if you have something available, if I would be a good fit. Let's get together, have lunch, any of those things. And I know on the strength of our previous relationship, on the strength of my work ethic and my ability to show up and lead, on the strength of my willingness, because this is about your willingness to stay connected to people. An example is the last time I worked in corporate America was almost 4 years ago. But I could still call the people that was previously in my network and go back to work. Why? Because I make it a point to genuinely stay connected to them. And you've heard me talk about some of those examples over the last couple of years. But I genuinely do that. And I don't spend a lot of time doing it. So here is one of the hacks I want to give you that I use. How to connect with people and move them from people in your network, people who know you, to people you have actual relationships with in 20 minutes or less a week. 20 minutes. You can do this in the car on your way to work, as long as you have a good headset and there's not a whole lot of background noise. Sometimes I do this while I'm cooking, because your network is just not people at work or random people. I do this in my business related to other coaches or other business people. I network with my clients. They will tell you that if I haven't heard from them, I check in. I do this with colleagues I previously worked with, and I also do this with family members. Here's what I did. Again, maybe I'm cooking dinner, maybe I'm folding laundry. I spend 20 minutes on voice memos. And my goal is to voice memo at least 10 people. And again, it can be a combination of people. Why 10 people? Why voice memos? My goal is 10. It's not always 10. Sometimes it's one person here or there throughout the week. I tend to stay connected with people when they come to my mind or something happens, good or bad, that I know. So an example would be I reached out to an old colleague because there's been some org changes that I know she doesn't like. I don't even have to ask her. I know, because we have that type of relationship, that she is unhappy about what has transpired. So I sent her a text, a personal text, to check in with her. Because I'm someone who would understand, because our relationship goes back far enough, that I would understand why she would be upset about this. 20 minutes, voice memos. Voice memos, because your voice connects. More people sign up for Confident Woman Lead on the strength of hearing me talk in this podcast than they ever have with 90 seconds on social media. More people feel like they know me based on having talked to me, either through this podcast or in person on a panel, at a conference, at a networking event. You don't really get to have that type of genuine conversation and connection and trust that you can be maybe even your full self or your whole self, depending on the environment. Staying connected is the most important skill you can develop. Now, in order for that skill to develop, you must develop your communication skills. So if what's coming to you is like, I want to network, but I don't know what to say, get inside a CWL. If you get nervous, it's because you don't feel confident that you know what to say or how to carry a conversation or manage your emotions through awkwardness in order to get to the other side. For those of you who know how to build relationships and think that you have genuine relationships, but you're still not getting the promotion, then you need to evolve that into speaking language at the next level. So you need to evolve your leadership communication. And to give you an example about that, how many of you have made it to a level of success where you've had to leave people behind? And not even that you don't talk to them anymore, but there's a time and a place. There's places you can take them, there's places you can't. This is what the language of leadership and leadership communication is all about. When you understand how to speak at the next level, doors will open. And quite frankly, they will open effortlessly. It won't take all that overworking. It won't take all of that noise, frustration. It won't take all of that. If you want to move from just having a network, your network is not your net worth. I'm sorry, it's not. No one's going to advocate in the room because I met you once and shook your hand. I'm not doing it. How many people could send you their resume right now and you would take it and put your reputation and back their resume to a colleague? Who are you talking to? Everyone, you hear me? Everyone needs to be working on nurturing relationships. This is the age of relationships. If you have a side hustle and you want it to grow, relationships. If you're in corporate and you want your career to grow, relationships. There is no getting around relationships and there's no getting around learning how to communicate. If you were to go to LinkedIn, if you were to Google, communication, especially from a leadership perspective, is one of the most sought after skills. And in the age of relationships and AI, your ability to communicate and connect with people, your humanness is in your communication. Your humanness is not in the work that you produce. So if you are ready to move to the next level, move to a role you desire, move to making more money, and even if you're just sick and tired of being tired, then I invite you to get inside a CWL. This is the moment to stop settling for not being in the room, just being in the room and talking and nobody listening, being in the room and not having any influence. Welcome to the age of relationships. I really did try to make this short. I promise I did. The second thing I want you to know is respond to people's news on LinkedIn. That is an easy way to connect with people. So, for example, one of my old bosses just took a role at a new organization, and I didn't just respond in the comments. No, I personally responded to her to say, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I know that you're going to be wonderful at this new role. Let me know how it's going. Let's stay connected. Personally, because I took the time to personally respond to her. She then takes the time to personally connect back to me. That is not the same as responding in the comments. People get to the comments when they got time, and most people on LinkedIn don't really be having that kind of time. They see your congratulations, maybe they heart it. They wanted you to know how they're moving. So don't forget, confident women lead because we build relationships that influence the people. I love you, sis. Let's get to work.